All right, we are here for the Falcon Forward podcast. Mike, I know I said I was never going to do like formal intros again and I was going to be all cool and casual, but it's Monday. I'm back after 2 weeks of travel. Feels good to be home for hopefully an extended duration of time. But yeah, how's your morning going? And looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, great. Hopefully our house is nursing itself back to health. Two of the four have been down
Oh,
for the past week. Fortunately, I was not one of them, but nonetheless, hopefully that this is a fresh week, fresh health in our household.
yeah. Quick recovery on everything. Well, wishing you guys the best and hopefully you can continue staving off whatever's going around. We were at the beach this weekend and playing with friends and family, and one of the younger kids, the parents mentioned to us, are like, "Oh yeah, our son." This was after we'd been with hanging out with him for like 5 or 6 hours. Going to the car, like, "Oh yeah, our son was up all last night with like a flu and like couldn't get rid of this cough." And I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, okay, well, I mean, my kids close talk, like kids do." And I'm like, "I'm guarantee you it's gonna happen." So came home, my wife was loading him up with vitamin C, but it happens. Anyways, so this week we we had a couple topics we want to go through. First one that I came across was a company called 11 Labs, and they actually have touting an insurance policy, or that they have insured their AI model. And let me just tell you what 11 Labs does. So it's actually better illustrated with a story, but there's a lady on Instagram who's a real estate agent, and she creates these 30-second to minute long videos explaining real estate topics. She probably has around, I don't know, 50 to 60,000 followers at this point, and all she does is she made a video with 11 Labs. So you go in there, you record yourself talking, and you take pictures of yourself and upload them to the cloud. You record an extensive amount of audio, so it picks up on how you talk and your mannerisms and conversations, and then you effectively load in what you want to have it say. So you take an article and you put the article in there, and it will do these cool things where it'll basically look like a very high produced video of you talking. Now, I'm pretty sensitive to this AI stuff because that's all I hear about all day long on social media. But if I look at her videos, it's very clearly artificial intelligence, right? Like the way that she's not looking at the camera, the way her eyes blink, on more of a regular cadence, the way her hands move like every couple minutes, like very animatronic, right? I don't know if you've ever been like Chuck E. Cheese, but everything looks like
Yeah,
everything goes up and down.
creepy.
It's kind of creepy, but she gets all these followers and she gets comments and interaction and people saying like, "Man, these videos are so helpful and I'm glad you're doing these and making these for everybody." And it's like, I'm looking, she's like cranking out 4 or 5 a day, and I'm like, this is crazy. So that's what 11 Labs does, is you can basically take your likeness, create your voice, and it will go out and build these things. Now they do a bunch of other really cool things. I think they're a pretty stand-up company. I don't know who backs them, but a lot of people use them. So
Like 75% of the Fortune 500, they
yeah,
claim are customers for their voice agents. So
correct. Yeah. So
big going.
great program. I have another friend of mine that built a company called Element. They do something similar, but on a smaller scale. And a lot of this is AI generated voice. So taking your voice and effectively, replicating it in an easy fashion, which I think is probably pretty useful in certain cases, right? I mean, the amount of time that I was talking to Matthew Portillo yesterday, I have an app on my computer now where I hold down two hotkeys and I don't write my emails really anymore. I hold down and I talk into my computer,
Cool.
and it writes my emails for me, so I'm not spending hours typing. And you get things done faster, but it's like if I could get my voice to do that on a voice thing, it'd be kind of fun. Anyways, so they actually insured I guess the output, right? So if your character, who you are, says something that shouldn't be said, I guess they're saying, "Hey, we're gonna insure that." And I don't know the process of going through that. It sounds like there's a whole organization. If I'll put the link in the comments, but it's the Artificial Intelligence Underwriting Company, so AIUC. They got a certification for it, and it's now they're now insured for it. So very fascinating. I'm curious your take on this: libel, defamation, advertising. All these things kind of come into play here, and AI does some weird things. I mean, you look at the outputs of some of these LLMs, and it gets a little bizarre.
Yeah, I agree. So interesting that you have a company. So insurance companies, they love data. They love historical information when they price something. So I'd be very curious to audit their policy. We'll see if we can call on 11 Labs to share policies with us. Free customary review, of course.
Yeah.
So it'd be very interesting to see what it is. obviously the concern an underwriter would have would be those things you mentioned, like, the saying something inappropriate, but then also just if you're talking to a customer, because these are used a lot as voice agents, is if you're sharing the wrong information or if it can be manipulated into doing something that it shouldn't or disclosing something that it shouldn't. Um, there's an army of attorneys out there that are always eager to jump on these types of things. So good for them. So, I mean, sounds like an interesting product. Sounds like if it works well, like that can be, but at the same time, I'll just share customer service phone calls. I think most people, I mean, argue probably even dread them more than going to the DMV.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what I do is I save them for when I'm on a road trip and I find myself starting to get a little bit sleepy is I'll like, who can I call? Because I know it's just going to get me so worked up and so amped up and so frustrated that I'll be awake, wide awake for the next 2 hours. Works better than caffeine in keeping you awake
It's a great idea.
on these types of things. So, but at the same time, like if I look at Delta, so Delta, their customer service is, I mean, I'll call them just if I'm having a bad day, just to be like, hey, can you, because they answer the phone right away. They're super, like you don't have to explain yourself twice. They almost know exactly what you're thinking, and it's all live agents. So if you look at someone like that, it'd be interesting to see because Delta will push you and say, hey, press 1 if you want to chat with us. It may be quicker. Or say no thanks. You actually have to turn that down, that chat option.
That's
And then someone picks up the phone right away on their customer service line, and they're great. And but it's all people and not necessarily trying to navigate a voice thing or hallucinations. So good for 11 Labs. Good to see a lot of people are using it.
Yeah.
Interesting that they have this insurance policy. It'd be great to see what that exact covers. But again, obviously change is continuous in this space.
Yeah, not something I've used, but I might have to look into it just out of curiosity, kind of what that would look like. Not that I'm going to build a animatronic Peter, but it's a possibility, right?
I could see you playing a guitar in front of a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
I'm banging the drums up there.
Yeah. Oh man, my kids might like it. More talented than I actually am. All right, so we've got a great week ahead for at Falcon West. So we've got Academy Group 5 is starting. So I'm very excited for that. That program has grown so fast, and like I have 3 more phone calls this week with people that want to join the next group, and it's like pretty amazing. I'm just thankful that we're able to be so involved in part of that too. I'll jump into this later, but like I traveled with Maceo last week and we talked about rugby so much. And part of it is because Maceo he's like, man, I could talk rugby forever. And I'm like, great, let's talk about it, right? So I learned a lot about rugby, but we've got that. We got some account managers. I want to hear from you, like what you're excited about this week and kind of what's going on the Falcon West end of things.
Yeah, equally excited with you with the launch of our Group 5 in the Academy, and we put out a great press release on it this morning. That was fun to read about them and see their pictures and see their background and what they hope to gain from the program.
Totally.
And I'm just excited because it's a pretty unique group of folks, like every group that's come through. I'm excited to see where are their interests. You look at some of our past groups where we have people helping us out on the AI side, helping us out on the media side,
Yep.
helping us out on the insurance brokering side. So what is this group's next interest? And does anyone kind of rise above the group that effectively earns that call up for the full-time either project or full-time position? So
Yeah.
quite excited to see how they accept the challenge and where they go with it. And then secondly, you mentioned the Academy group starting. We also have a new account manager starting. So our first go around of a Laura from Florida worked so well, we've decided to hire another Laura from Florida. LH is now joining LG,
Right.
our Floridian employees. She's here in San Diego this week, which is great.
Yep.
Great for that face-to-face time. Great to be able to meet her. And we're cycling in a fair amount of people that we'll get to spend time with her and get her up to speed. So anytime we have a new person come join us, I'm excited for what they bring from their past experience and how that is such a compliment to what we've been doing here on it. So yeah, Monday morning, they probably started up about 30 minutes ago with their onboarding and training, and it's just great stuff. So lots of optimism in the air.
Yeah, by the time this goes out, we'll have gone to a team lunch and kind of met. So I'm excited. She hits on every phone call, every interview with her, so much energy. Right? I think that was the big takeaway for me was kind of that energy to just like get it done, talk to the clients, enjoys that kind of hands-on. So Laura, excited to meet you. Welcome to the team.
Yes.
yeah, and same thing with the academy. So all great things there. Let me pull up my cheat sheet here. Here we go. Oh yeah, so we were gonna go over. So, anyways, back to Oklahoma, right? So I got to go out there last week, and I think I really want to figure out how I can go out there every couple of months, but got to go visit with Wade Spear. So went to Tulsa, went down to Cushing, hung out with Carly and her family, went to dinner, and then so Carly's husband was like, "Well, I know it's like late, but like, do you guys want to go check out all the tanks?" And so learned a lot about like they're massive tanks. It seems like there's thousands of these. Just it's ginormous, but drive through. He's showing us how everything gets tied together, and I didn't know this about Cushing, but they flow an insane amount of oil and gas through that area. It's the pipeline capital of the world, and
Yep.
they actually price so the WTI, so the West Texas Index, off of what goes through Cushing. So when we're talking oil prices, right? Everyone's saying, oh, it's $67 today or $72. It's all based on the available inventory in Cushing. So fascinating. I'm excited. He's going to come on the Local Energy podcast. I'm going to make sure Carly gets him on with us, but we're going to talk. We're going to talk tanks and maintenance and all that stuff for a good 45 minutes, hopefully. But I think my thing. So the reason I want to talk about Oklahoma City is there's sort of a reality to what we do, right? A lot of the stuff we talk about on the podcast is sort of can come across hypothetical. We're trying to talk about what's present in the moment. But last week, the reality of it was, we woke up at 4 a.m. I think Maceo was up at 2:30, get to the airport, you hit you're on a plane, make sure everything gets there, you land, get the car. And we were already off by 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Central Time. We were already meeting with clients, right? So you're kind of hoping that everything pencils out. For 2 weeks before, Maceo was making phone calls to get the appointments done. The next day we were fully booked, drove out to Tulsa. The furthest we drove out was Blanchard. So we're like past Norman in this, probably like an hour and a half on these dirt roads out in the middle of nowhere, going up into a, trailer. Don't really know. You just hear dogs barking and you're like, this might be the worst thing I ever do. But, go inside, meet the coolest people. They sit down, cup of coffee, or just kind of sitting back and in the chairs, talking shop, right? So we talk about what's going on with them, how's their business, where can we support, what are they looking for maybe that they're not currently getting. And then you got to get back in the car because you got to sprint down another 2 hours away to get to the next meeting, and you're taking phone calls in between. So I share this with the intention of just ensuring that when we talk to brokers and we're saying, hey, we would love to bring someone on our team, the reality of what we do on some of these weeks isn't necessarily like I wake up at 7:30 and I'm done working at 4:30. Like these days were very long, and you're pretty much at the end of it. You're like, you're done, right? You don't really have much left in the tank, and thankful for family to help kind of refill that and get back to it. But there's definitely a rise and grind mentality, especially on the brokerage side, where you have to be putting in the work. And Maceo, far and above, I've wanted him to come on and talk with us, but I mean, he stood head and shoulders above on everything. I mean, he crushed it. So got all these things and great momentum going into it. So excited to have the energy meeting. I will comment that the whole time we were in Oklahoma City, like I'm the world's worst driver, apparently. There's like a lot of one-way streets. There's red lights. Apparently you have to stop at those, and there's stop signs, neither of which I was able to pay attention to in the city. I don't know what my problem was. So didn't get any tickets. Everyone's safe, but Maceo was pretty much fearful for his own life. So anyways, that was Oklahoma City. Yeah,
The
fun
insurance
time.
left in there is buy the rental car damage waiver.
Yeah, 100%. So this was cool. So I usually in years past, like you think like, oh, I got to get a hotel. No, you don't get a hotel. We use Airbnb. It was awesome. I think we got a 3-story house for I think $300 for the 4 nights we were there.
Nice.
Uh, it was amazing. And then we used Turo to get the car.
Okay.
So and that again was way cheaper than getting a rental car. So this sharing industry is very interesting, but
Yeah.
and so I had to learn how to do it. But I mean, man, that's the way to go. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah. I've not used Turo before, but quite familiar with it. And Airbnbs over hotels is, I mean, it's a totally different experience,
Yeah,
provided it's a good one. Most times it's a good one, but yeah, especially with multiple people, just having that, it's a home, right? You're staying in a home,
totally.
not a hotel room. So that's
Yeah.
all.
Well, we had a little fireplace, outside and looking over the city. And then we got the one thing, and I realized why it was really inexpensive. We got in a Lyft to go downtown one night, and the lady was like, "How do you like living over there?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just an Airbnb." And she's like, "Well, like you're in like the super sketchy part of town, like where all the crackheads live." And I was like, "Oh, cool, okay, like that's what." But you learn, it's just
It's for fun nightlife.
yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I felt safe. It was fine. I had Maceo with me the whole time. I'm telling people, I'm like, "This is my bodyguard." It was great. It was the best time of my life. Learned a lot about rugby too. So yeah, that was Oklahoma. But just yeah, definitely a reality to what we're doing. So I know you had something that you wanted to share, which is a completely different topic. Like we're kind of bouncing around today, but California homeowners insurance and the market here.
Yeah, and this actually came about. So the current insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, is termed out this year. So there's, I think, 6 viable or so candidates that have thrown their hat in the ring that they want to run for insurance commissioner. And, it's arguably the most interesting time in the California insurance market for a potential commissioner. And you're faced now with just 3 very different sets of people. Of the 6 candidates, 2 I'd put in one camp, 2 I'd put in another camp, and 2 are in a third camp of
Okay.
relatively similar ideas on it. One is the first camp is, like, let's open up the market and bring in more competition. The second is let's build out the fair plan. And then the third camp, I'm not going to think is very realistic, is like, let's just get rid of insurance altogether. And just, again, hopefully they don't get elected, because
Goodness.
it would be a disaster. But it's a really big deal for everyone in California, and not just in California. Like, I actually heard this on a podcast, the insurance guys podcast was talking about, was covered in. These are 2 insurance producers from Alabama on their podcast. The fact is, California is so big. I think, the 5th largest economy in the world, if it was on its own, by GDP. So that what happens in California does have an impact on everyone else. So what I thought would be helpful is I give a little backstory on why we're at this point in the homeowners insurance market, because I would say anyone who owns a home in California is aware that insurance is tricky, but not necessarily understanding why it is or why they're at this point. A little backstory is 1988, California passed Prop 103, and it was titled as insurance reform. It had 3 kind of takeaways from this, or changes that it made to the marketplace. Was that insurance companies, when they forecasted what they needed to charge, they could only use historical data for that. So you couldn't use anything forward thinking. So things that are going to change in the future that we know of, such as cost of insurance, homes getting bigger and bigger, frequency of loss, all those types of things, you cannot use that. You can only use historical data when coming up with your pricing. And that's kind of the lowest of the 3. But why does that matter? What does that? California is the only state that limits you to backward modeling and doesn't allow forward modeling. So the only state that allows that. So problematic, number 1. And why is that problematic? So in the last 9 years, we've had the 5 most costly fires in California history. And again, in the last 9, 10 years, 15 of the top 17 of all time wildfire losses, measured on an economic loss basis, have occurred. So stuff is happening more and more frequently. And when it does happen, it's more and more expensive. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2, and this is a little bit of a technical thing, but reinsurance is something that insurance companies buy to limit their losses. So just think of it as insurance that insurance companies buy. All insurance companies use reinsurance, and the idea there is that if you have one large loss and you have a heavier concentration in that area, it's a way for you to spread out that loss so that it doesn't bankrupt your company. So it's used throughout the world. Again, all insurance companies use reinsurance. In California, again, it's the only state that doesn't allow insurance company to use reinsurance costs when factoring their rates. And effectively, you can think of this as your cost of goods sold. If you're an insurance company, you buy reinsurance, you package it up, you sell this as insurance policies to your customers. It's your cost of goods sold. Again, California is the only state that doesn't allow you to use reinsurance when setting their pricing. The Prop 103 has been around for almost 40 years. For a long time, that wasn't as big a deal, that insurance companies just dealt with it. But what happened it was 5 years ago, was the cost of reinsurance started skyrocketing. And all of a sudden, insurance companies saw them in place being like, holy cow, our reinsurance costs are going up 20, 30% a year. And this is something that we can't pass that on. So effectively, our product is becoming, we're losing money on it. If we continue to sell and this continues going forward, we're out of luck. We're going to be selling something that we're going to lose money on. So we need to change that. Uh, and then the third piece on it, and this has been the most frustrating, I think, for insurance companies, um, is that your pricing increases are limited to 7%. And if you ask for an increase that's above 7%, then you submit this to the Department of Insurance. And again, in most states, this is a 30 to 60-day process to do this. The state of California decided to politicize it and basically stop taking new applications. It could take up to 2 years to get your rate increases approved,
Yeah.
or they would get shot down as well. But you had this very long bureaucratic process. So effectively, insurance companies started to say, man, we can't write business in these states if we don't have changes in these types of things. Were you going to ask something there?
No, well, I mean, this was, I had done some similar research like 3 years ago. And at the time, I remember it was taking up to like 310 days or something. It was 3-1 something to get anything approved. And it's amazing to me, like a lot of these problems haven't been fixed even in the last, since I did that 3 years ago, it's still the same problem. So I don't know if this is and the other part too is so excuse me, that was my phone. Commissioner Laura, some people were saying like he's kind of in between a rock and a hard place because he's and I look at like he can't raise rates, he can't lower them, he's kind of just has to like hold the line. And Governor Newsom's not supposed to be involved in any of this, but it sure feels like there's something there. So I'm hoping, I don't know. I don't know any of these people that are running. My question would be, have any of them ever actually been in the insurance industry? Because I just did a quick skim and it doesn't appear that that's really the background of any of them, but I could be wrong. But I'm just hoping they understand how it actually works.
Yeah, no, one of the six has been
Okay.
Catherine. She had kind of a longer last name, but one of the six is a full range, a retired agent.
All right. So maybe a little more comprehension.
And it's still kind of two other issues that are basically gumming up our system would be a crisis in underinsurance. So people have found that when they actually do need to use their insurance, like their home burns down, they find out that they didn't have enough insurance in place. Or if they're involved in an auto accident, like we talked a little bit about this claim scenario before, the person felt like they had to sue their insurance company because they didn't have enough coverage under it, and they were able to find some novel ways to have insurance apply that it wasn't intended to. So those are all these kind of issues in our system. And it's like, okay, well all right, issues, right? How do we fix them? So in my opinion, and these are Mike's opinions on things, is the Department of Insurance is way overstepped its mandate. So what should a Department of Insurance do? It should regulate insurance to make sure that, hey, you guys are financially sound, that you have the reserves in place so that if something happens, you're able to pay those claims. So that's number one of what a Department of Insurance should be doing, is making sure your insurance companies will still stay around. It should handle licensing of individuals in companies. And, we as agents have to take tests and earn a license. And if you have certain criminal convictions, you're not allowed to be a licensed insurance agent in the state. You should do that. And you should investigate fraud. And make sure that if there are bad actors in the system, and that could be fraud on an insurance company's end, which is relatively rare, but much more common would be fraud like rings that are staging accidents or committing fraud against the insurance companies themselves. There's also agents out there. This is relatively rare as well, but agents that will commit fraud as well. So all responsibilities of the Department of Insurance. What shouldn't the Department of Insurance be doing? It shouldn't be basically dictating to insurance companies, here's how to run your business. Here's how you need to price your product. Here's what you need to offer. Well, those are all things in a free market. Like, the government does not get involved in saying, hey, company, you need to sell this product and you need to sell it at this price. And that's all you can do. Again, that's broaching into socialism right there, and or communism.
Yeah.
On how you're dictating your product. So you have the Department of Insurance, and you ask the question, like, have any of these people been involved in the industry before? So no, they effectively have taken this mandate, and insurance companies have said, okay, like, if those are the rules, then we're going to take our ball and go home. Like, we can't play under those rules. And And what does all that mean? It means that you can't get insurance right now if you live in certain areas.
Totally.
With the state.
Our home was insured for a very long time with Allstate, and we had it overinsured according to the agent, but we couldn't find anyone to write our property. And I'm like, okay, it is what it is. This is before we moved into to Vista, but I had shopped around for it, and I think the quote with the California Fair Plan came back at like $18,000 because right on the edge of this preserve, I mean, basically, it's just this massive area that could just go up in flames, and I didn't really think through it, but it's like, but I overinsured with Allstate, and they kept me on for a long time, and I'm pretty sure it's because they looked at like how much I was paying them for insurance, and was like, this guy's overinsured, like like we're actually making money off this guy. Like, I don't know, but I felt like there was something there for the longest time, but I look at it, what the insurance commissioner is doing, or the Department of Insurance. Let's make it more of a group thing here. It's kind of like rent control, right? I mean, and actually the way that I look at it and kind of phrase it in my head is like, they're trying to control so many things, but it's actually making people like, we don't want to write insurance here because it's not profitable. And so there's less options, which drives the price up, and it just becomes a real mess. So I don't know. I'm hopeful they fix it, but there's obviously a lot of politics involved in this conversation, which is not a great thing.
Yeah. Well, the good news, Peter, is I have my fixes for the system.
You do? Okay, you came ready.
Absolutely. So we have three groups of stakeholders in this. You have your consumers, you have the insurance carriers, and then you have government. So everybody has a role in how we can fix the system and get it to a functioning marketplace. And actually, some of these things are already in place. So now insurance companies can use the cost of reinsurance, and they can use the forward modeling. So the spigot has been turned a little bit here, but you still need to make some changes. So, and first off, I'll start with the consumers. So, they need to understand that insurance, this is something that you never ever want to use, but if you do have cause to use it, you want to make sure you have the best insurance that you could possibly have bought. So who complains about how expensive insurance is? Who makes those complaints? It's the people who've never used it, right, before. You know who never, ever complains about how expensive insurance was? Someone whose house burnt down and they had adequate cost to rebuild. Someone whose spouse unexpectedly passed away of a heart attack and they don't have to go back in the workforce because they got a life insurance check from them.
Right.
The parents who see their savings intact when your kid makes a really bad choice and causes a real bad car accident, and you have an insurance company stepping up to pay that claim on it so you don't have to bankrupt yourself for going to the savings. So, again, it's very, very, very low odds that you'll be involved ever in a large, like a multi-million-dollar loss. Infinitely small odds. Yeah, but the whole premise of insurance is that it's affordable to buy a policy that will effectively make you whole if that happens. So on the consumer side, you got to understand that, hey, I want to make sure I have the best insurance possible. And if I never get a dime from the insurance company, I'm a lucky person because it meant that I was one of the lucky ones. So, and on the insurance side, so the insurance companies absolutely have a responsibility here. In my way on it is it's through education. So stop with the cute emus and geckos and telling how much money they can save. They commoditized a product or their product when instead they should be saying, educating people on how you can avoid claims, what to do in the event of a loss, and just understanding like, hey, this is serious stuff here. And again, if you're the unlucky person who's involved in one of these incidences, there can be two scenarios. It can be a terrible tragedy that's absolutely life-changing and you never recover, or it can be a terrible tragedy that at least you're financially sound. And insurance companies, you can't turn back the clock. You can't undo something that happens, but they can make sure that it doesn't have a financial impact on you. And then the last group that needs to step up here is our government. So they have to enact legal reform so that when someone has an accident, it isn't viewed as a lottery ticket and they just won the lottery because something bad happened and now someone else has got to pay. They have to make those changes. How do you do that? You can eliminate frivolous lawsuits by making the losers pay. So, right now, our legal system was one of the few in the world that if you bring a lawsuit, so I can sue you, I can cause all sorts of grief to you. And if that claim gets dismissed, guess who has to pay? the person who gets sued on it, and then whatever attorney fronted the costs on that. So make the losing party pay for frivolous lawsuits. That
I
would
feel like that would go a very long ways.
Yep. We need to eliminate litigation funding. It's private equity companies that have basically said, hey, bring more lawsuits because we know that they'll settle and we get a return on our money for doing so. That doesn't help people, doesn't help injured parties. It doesn't help anyone. It just drives up the cost for everyone through higher insurance costs. And they also need to eliminate limits on the payouts. So by enacting caps on certain types of losses, it's going to eliminate that that lottery ticket mentality. You need to eliminate the deep pocket rules they call joint and several liability, which says, okay, you may be 1% responsible in the eyes of a jury, yet you're the one who has money, and the person who's 99% responsible doesn't have money, guess is paying for that whole cost. That's just not fair. Fundamentally, that's just not fair. And then the government can also get involved with building codes and streamlining just the bureaucracy that goes into keeping costs high for rebuilding. But essentially, they need to embrace competition in the marketplace is really the only solution to get these things fixed for consumers.
Totally. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. You'll have to send me your notes on it so I can put together like an article on that, because that's I think worth a read on as well. You know, especially if you're having these conversations with people on a regular basis, right? It's like we are, right? It's kind of, I don't know, knowing the backstory I think is important.
Absolutely. So hopefully we get good people. Hopefully people pay attention to who they're voting for, because some of the people that are out there would make this bad situation, just untenable. So recognize that people have got to get educated on who you're voting for. I think this is arguably one of the most important elections that California will have, and that will have an impact across the U.S.
I totally agree with you. Well, we have another meeting we have to jump over to, so I'm going to end abruptly here. Mike, thank you guys for listening. Hope you learned something. All the Academy members that are coming in, all the new hires that we have joining us, welcome. We do this once a week for various topics. I just want to share what's inside. But yeah, thank you guys. And Mike, I'll see you here on our next call.
Thanks.
Falcon Forward does not provide financial or insurance advice. The following disclosure is available at falconwest.com/privacy-policy. All information provided is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We encourage you to do your own research and consult with qualified professionals regarding your specific needs. If you have specific questions about your property and casualty insurance, our contact information can be found at falconwest.com. This content expresses the views of Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. as of the date indicated, and such views are subject to change without notice. Falcon West has no duty or obligation to update the information contained herein. Further, Falcon West makes no representation, and it should not be assumed that past insurance market conditions, coverage terms, or pricing are an indication of future results. This information is being made available for educational purposes only and should not be used as a substitute for insurance advice tailored to your specific circumstances. The information contained herein does not constitute and should not be construed as an offering of insurance coverage, a guarantee of coverage terms, or a binding quote in any jurisdiction. Certain information contained herein concerning insurance markets, industry trends, and risk performance is based on or derived from information provided by independent third-party sources. Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. believes that the sources from which such information has been obtained are reliable. However, it cannot guarantee the accuracy of such information and has not independently verified the accuracy or completeness of such information or the assumptions on which information is based. This content, including the information contained herein, may not be copied, reproduced, republished, or posted in whole or in part in any form without the prior written consent of Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. To obtain our property and casualty license information, please visit falconwest.com. Our California license number is 0616640.